lot of people feel that living in the 21st century is a bit like riding one of those buses in Peru. So you're going much too fast on this twisty mountain road. You can't see what's ahead. There are all these, llamas and donkeys in the way, and there's a sheer fall off on one side down to one of the sources of the Amazon. Being a scientist is like driving that bus. My name's Chris Fellows, and I'm an associate professor in chemistry here at the University of New England, Australia. My core expertise is in what's called chain growth polymerization. So polymerization is when you get little molecules and stitch them together into great big molecules that might be as long as 1/1,000,000th of a meter from one end to another. And in chain growth polymerization, you're not doing each step sequentially in this reaction. You're putting in a little drop of fairy dust or something that kicks it all off in one foul swoop. And in recent decades, we've developed a whole suite of methods which are called controlled radical polymerization, which allow us to really control how long these chains are and exactly what we have on the ends. And more of what I do now isn't just making these molecules, but looking at applications for them. And I've just come back actually from ANSTO, the Australian Nuclear Science and Technology Organization, where I was doing some small angle X-ray scattering work on an application of these polymers. So the specific polymers that we're looking at are ones that dissolve in water, so they're polycarboxylic acids. And when you have these in there with some scale-forming salts, they really modify what happens. So you get different shapes of your crystals forming. You can really slow down the rate at which your crystals are forming, or conversely, you can speed it up. And the system we were looking at was calcium oxalate. So this is a scale that forms in sugar mill evaporators. So in your sugar mills, you've got your concentrated sugar juice, you're boiling it down, and towards the end, when it's really concentrated and the temperature is really high, you get this material scaling out on the inside of your evaporator. And this slows down how much the heat can go through, slows down how much the material can go through. Eventually, you've got to shut your plant down and get rid of this. So any way you can slow this stuff from forming improves the process. And these polymers that we're looking at, they can have a dramatic impact on low parts per million levels in these systems. The other thing that I'm really interested in as far as scaling systems and polymers go is thermal desalination. So calcium oxalate is a big problem in the sugar industry, but in the Middle East, they have desalination plants that are basically run by gas. They're sort of co-generating water and heat for these enormous cities, and all their water comes from these plants. And the thing about these plants is that they're more efficient the higher the temperature you can run them. And the limiting factor on how high you can run these plants is the formation of scale. So you get up too high, you get calcium sulfate crashing out, and your process doesn't work anymore. So if we can push the temperature up just a few more degrees, it will have an efficiency impact that will be equivalent to removing a city the size of Brisbane from the power grid. So that's our dream as far as that goes. So one of the things about doing science nowadays is that it's a very collaborative effort. So I have my students in the lab doing work, and I collaborate with other researchers here at UNE, not just in chemistry, but over in physics and in statistics. So and I do a lot of work with researchers down in Sydney at the nuclear reactor at Lucas Heights, and my old collaborators at the University of Sydney, where there's a very strong polymer group, also the University of New South Wales, and I've got an ongoing collaboration with an ex-student back in Saudi Arabia who's employed at the world's largest desalination plant at Al Jubail, and I did a little map a few years back of all the countries where my co-authors had come from on my publications, and most of the world was colored in when I did that.